transport attempting to escape. Find the target and take it out.
Hi, I'm Samuel from PC Gamer.
Hello, I am Tom from PC Gamer.
We're here to talk about Star Wars Battlefront today.
Star Wars, you've played this, Sam. You're playing it right now. We're watching you play this.
Yes, it's in real time. That's how I'm jumping between levels. And there's a compilation of footage that I myself grabbed when I played the game in Sweden a couple of weeks ago. And it's basically the beta that's going to be launching this week, open beta. And it was running on PC, so it's 60 frames per second, 1080p footage. It's a really impressive game. There's a whole bunch of things about it that I think might not necessarily appeal to like really hardcore shooter fans, but I think if you love Star Wars, and this is Star Wars year, then it's absolutely going to be the game that people want this year, I think.
It's awkwardly positioned between Battlefront and Battlefield, and there are two very different sets of expectations for those games. Where did it sit between those?
Well, like it's slightly further towards Battlefield than old Battlefront was.
Right.
Like it feels quite refined. Like the old Battlefront series was really fun, but it was kind of like a really silly kind of knock around sandboxy multiplayer shooter where you just jump in a vehicle, crash it, and it doesn't really matter if you. It had really kind of like weird things about it, like bad sound alikes for Han Solo and Luke Skywalker that made it feel a little bit B-movie-ish in kind of a charming way, but you couldn't get away with what that was now. So it feels a bit more like it's a bit more structured, I think, and it takes that from Battlefield certainly, but it's nowhere near as hard. And there's a whole bunch of things in it that make it more appealing to people who aren't necessarily shooter fans or hardcore shooter fans.
I guess because you have that choice between first and third person, and you're not going to be looking at like bullet drop or anything like that. I imagine it's just going to be like a point and shoot arcadey capture the points style thing.
Yeah. Well, everyone carries the same gun. Like there's multiple unlocks for the blaster rifle, but all they really do is rebalance your stats. So depending on what type of player you are, you can pick whether you want long or short range or whatever. But the idea is that you'd never have a tactical advantage just from leveling up, which is quite interesting. Like when it comes to other weapons, like the sniper rifle, for example, is an ability with a cooldown.
Oh well.
So like you fire a shot and then I think it takes something like 5 or 6 seconds to recharge, but it's not something you can just spam, and like you can't. While on the Hoth level, particular the Walker Assault mode, which is like a 20v20 like all-out war. Basically, it's the Battle of Hoth from the films, like really well realised and seen quite extensively during E3. It's you do get players sniping, but like it's still just a kind of you just see blaster fire going from one side to the other. Like it's not nearly as hardcore. The fact that I can play it and not utterly humiliate myself is the sign that it's not necessarily a hardcore shooter, for better or worse.
It sounds like that's quite an odd abstract system to have a kind of sniper rifle as an ability rather than a thing that you're carrying around with you. And does that apply to like vehicles and other abilities as well?
Yeah, sort of. So basically, you see in the bottom right-hand side of the HUD, there's these cards, star cards, and basically you unlock them by spending like currency in the game, in the menu screens, and then you can equip 3 at a time. So, for example, grenades are one, thermal detonators. I think that takes something like 11 seconds to recharge before you can throw another one, which is, it takes some getting used to. Certainly, like they're not part of your armory. They're just like a MOBA ability or something. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
But I think it works pretty well. There's another one, for example, that does gives you precision fire for a few seconds, and when you find a vehicle, they're kind of like temporary cards that you can pick up. Well, they're sort of like they appear just beneath the star cards, but you find these tokens like an A-wing token or an X-wing token, and then you just kind of like you basically activate it, and then you're just in an X-wing or in an A-wing. Like you don't take off like in old Battlefront games, which I think is I think you miss that a little bit. Like getting in a spaceship and taking off in Battlefront was one of the things I really liked about it. But it just means that everything's really kind of simplified. Like every slightly odd ability is under the banner of star cards, which is it might not appeal to some types of FPS fan, I don't think, but like keeps things really simple.
So when you're in the air and you're flying along, is that also on a cooldown? Will it like boot you out of the X-wing after a little bit of time?
No, you have like a health meter, but like it's not particularly high. So you're not like I was in an A-wing, for example, which you'll see in this footage, and I got basically I was doing okay, but then as soon as like a TIE fighter turned up, and I got hit like 2 or 3 times, and the bar went right down. But when you're in an A-wing, you have that has its own abilities with cooldowns. So firing torpedoes, for example, or like a brief shield buff, like you just see like a blue outline around the A-wing appear, for example, and then you take a little bit less damage. But I think the idea is that you kind of use them up, and then it's gone. That's how vehicles work in the game. They're kind of disposable. And I'd say that actually, like, controlling them, while it kind of looks really impressive, in the build I played, the controls were way too stiff.
Right.
Like, I had to like basically move the mouse along the pad about 4 times to turn around, which I think they need to tweak the sensitivity of that before it comes out. But I can't deny that being in a spaceship and seeing that battlefield from up there, seeing Hoth look like that, like it's never been seen before in a video game, is pretty damn cool.
It sounds like, as you say, they've simplified all those systems, and it sounds like they want it to be so accessible, and that's one of the reasons why they're not going to have a server browser and stuff like that they've said. What do you think of that as a move for this game?
It's not terribly surprising, just based on Titanfall, which I think was a similar deal. So you're kind of relying on their matchmaking to sort it out for you. I see why they would argue that. However, I don't necessarily buy that as a good enough reason to do it, to turn it off for PC fans. Surely make matchmaking optional, and they maybe make server browsing optional as well. Just by removing the option altogether, I'm not necessarily sure that was the best.
I mean, I can understand why they do it, but I always had this problem with Titanfall where if it was a map that I didn't like came up, I would just bail and go, don't want to play that.
Yeah.
And it feels like the audience should have the choice to be able to play the aspects of the game that they really want to play.
Well, you can do that actually.
Oh, great.
You choose the mode and the map you want to play. This is how it worked in the beta anyway. So from the beta, you'd see like all the modes on the screen, and you'd pick Walker Assault, then you'd pick Hoth, and then it would find you a game within that.
That's cool.
So there is still a certain amount of like, you being able to do what you want to do for sure. That's in there. And I guess like I'd be less worried about servers being empty with with it being a Star Wars game and everything. It's likely to be quite popular for a while. But in the case of something like Titanfall, it could take you a while to get a game, particularly if you're paying like DLC maps or whatever. And I kind of worry what the eventual result of that is when you can't. If everyone's going into, if someone's going into an unpopular mode, they might not see that another mode is more populated, and therefore that might be something they want to do. When you've got no server browsing at all, I assume that's the scenario you'll find yourself in.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, I see why they did it, but I don't know. There could be a few consequences. Sometimes it's nice to give that choice to the player, Yeah.
So you can play as heroes in this game. You can become Luke Skywalker. I believe it's like a battlefield pickup or something like that. Was that in this build?
It was, yeah. It's in the beta as well. I didn't get to play as a Jedi. I died about 4 times just trying to get into an A-wing. I was like, I'm doing that. I mean, Jesus, if I'm going to play this for 2 or 3 hours, and that's happening. But I did just look out into the battlefield and just see Darth Vader turn up, just twat a guy and just walk off again. They are there. I heard some of the other players complaining about how powerful Vader was.
Right. He's got to be powerful though. That's the whole point of Darth Vader. You can't show up and get headshotted from across the map.
I think it's a good unpredictable element to have in the game. Even if they break canon by having Luke Skywalker have a green lightsaber on Hoth, which would never happen.
Oh no, that's we can never forgive that.
I quite like the idea of that actually, and the pickup system isn't too bad. I think you just maybe lose a bit of the sandboxy feel of Battlefront, which maybe had a bit more value than they give it credit for in the new Battlefront. But it's a cool touch, and it just looks so good as well. It's not just when you're on the ground. You look up into the sky, you just see Star Destroyers and cruisers and stuff, and it's like a full-on war going on. You can capture so much Star Wars just in one picture. It's really, really cool. I don't necessarily think it's going to be many people's kind of go-to shooter of choice. But I kind of see myself treating it a bit like Titanfall, where I just come back to it maybe every few months or whatever, and have a few games and then carry on, just scratching the Star Wars itch and moving on. And that will be quite a valuable thing for a lot of people. And I
mean, when the film comes out, everyone's going to have that urge to just dip their head in the Star Wars universe, and I guess this game is with the spectacle and the attention they put into the visuals. That's kind of what it's for, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And so they've got a whole bunch of modes seemingly as well. So in the beta you have basically a supply run mode where you've got to kind of like King of the Hill, really, where you've got to secure a spot on the map for a certain amount of time. Then you score a point, and then a new pod will drop onto the map somewhere else, and you've got to fight for that, defend that. That was on Sullust, the kind of volcanic planet, which they haven't previously shown until today. And then there's also survival mode, which is basically the horde mode, which you can play offline. That was the least impressive part of the demo by far, actually.
Right.
That was on Tatooine, and it's just a few stormtroopers, and then a couple of AT-STs will turn up in waves, and then you just got to defend. And while they gave you a grenade launcher, again on a cooldown, and a jetpack, that it didn't really hold up on multiple playthroughs because the AI just didn't seem particularly interesting. And I can't see why you necessarily play that as much as anything else. Walker Assault is definitely the main event in all of this, but there seems like a good chunk of game in there. Assuming that each mode has a different variation of each map, or thereabouts.
Yeah.
Like there's a Walker Assault mode on Endor, for example. I've seen a screenshot of that, so there's potentially a lot of game there.
Fantastic. On the scale of a new Phantom Menace to Empire Strikes Back, how excited would you say you are about Battlefront?
I'm halfway between Return of the Jedi and A New Hope out of 10.
Fantastic. Well, thanks, Sam. Looking forward to playing it.
Cheers, Tom.